Wow, this is a really great gathering. I'm happy to see everybody tonight. My name is Nancy Harkins. I'm one of the steering committee members, and I want to give my other steering committee members a chance to introduce themselves. Anita, you want to?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to think of how to dispose of this plate.
Oh,
I'm Anita. I'm the steering committee. There.
Dale Daria, also on the steering committee. And I just want to say, it is so great to see all these people here, and it was so great to have such a good dinner too.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Definitely. Anita was talking about her plate because thanks to People's Kitchen, we have a great yummy dinner here tonight. And Fareed has provided to-go containers. So if you want to take your favorite leftovers home with you, you can. So
by what time?
Tonight, as most of you know, we're really basically dedicating the meeting to our panel discussion. But does anybody have any announcements they want to make?
Hi, I'm Andy Simon, Ward 5, here on Locust Street. I just want to remind people that there is a demonstration at City Hall at noon on Saturday, and it's a hands-off demonstration advising, demanding that Trump and Musk to get their hands off all these parts of the government and parts of the society that they're trying to dismantle. And I think there'll be a lot of people there. It's going to be raining, according to the weather forecast, but I think people will still come. A group of us from the South End are going to assemble at Callahan Park at 11:15 to walk down together, and Samba Tucada, the Brazilian musical group, is going to lead us. So come down to the park, Callahan Park at 11:15, and we'll walk down together. Otherwise, get there on your own steam, and we'll see you at City Hall.
And it's only rain. Rain doesn't scare us. Thank you, Andy. Anybody else?
Thanks, everybody. My name is Fareed. I'm a volunteer with the People's Kitchen Project. We have been providing free food downtown 3 nights a week since last September. And we've also been distributing donated supplies for our unhoused neighbors. Right now, we are looking to provide them with ice shelters. It's like kind of like an upgraded version of tents that will protect people from the wind, and it's been really helpful. We started out with 12 units, and now we are almost up to 40 units. And so I know some of you have donated to purchase these things, so I want to thank the community for it. And also, we're looking for sleeping bags and warm clothes. My number is 802 272-8339. You can also email me at fareed@workercenter.org. And if you want to volunteer with us, also please get in touch. We also do a free food distribution for families in South End here every Friday. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Okay, I have one announcement. Today, the Senate Committee on Government Operations heard testimony on the charter change, the Burlington charter change to ban guns in bars. They're going to be hearing testimony next week also. It's really important to get the word out to members of that Senate committee and to our own senators that you support this measure, that it's really important to you, and you are looking at the results of their work on this. So if you need any information about that, let me know.
Comment on that?
You sure can.
Briefly.
Hi, Bram Klepner, state representative from this part of town. And I just want to add the fact that both Texas and Oklahoma have banned guns from bars. And these are not known as bastions of liberal anti-gun nuts. So, I think this is not at all a cutting edge or extreme anti-Second Amendment position at all. This is a common sense, widely accepted practice.
Nancy, just the Senate that's dealing with this or the House too?
At the moment, it's in the Senate. It will come to the House GovOps if it gets out of the Senate.
Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to our panel discussion. And I just want to say that this discussion that we're having tonight is a development, something that Megan and Diane kicked off for us a year ago and have really devoted a lot of energy and time to putting this together. So I'm really excited about tonight.
And so has Nancy.
So, okay, Megan.
All right, so welcome everyone to the special NPA community event. I'm Megan Epler-Wood, and I just want to say a few words about why we're doing this special community event and introduce our speakers, and then we'll get going. So I just wanted to remind you all that Burlington has a critical need to respond to the problem of stormwater runoff because of our aging infrastructure, which we'll be talking about, advancing climate change, regulatory gaps, and increasing urbanization in our neighborhoods. So our city, in case you haven't heard already, is projected to see an increase in precipitation on the order of 20 to 30% in the next 10 to 20 years. So whatever we've been seeing up to now is not going to stop or suddenly be over. And what we've seen, of course, already is heavy damaging rainfall events that have already increased and will continue to do so. So according to the Burlington City estimates. So we definitely have this on the table now. So tonight we have 4 expert speakers giving short 10-minute presentations on how to address the excess runoff that we will be seeing ahead from a community design, green infrastructure, and land protection perspective. And then we're going to have a full Q&A. So I'm going to introduce all the speakers up front, and you can just sort of put your hand up when I mention you, and then we'll go from there. So first we have Eleanor Walker. She's the Policy and Programs Advisor with the City, with Water Resources with the City of Burlington. Welcome, Eleanor. Michelle Lockhart. You have a lot of affiliations here. Land use and water quality educator at University of Vermont at the Rubenstein School, and also the Blue BTV Sea Grant program, which is for residential stormwater management. And then we have Andy Simon and Ruby Perry. And what I have found for you is that you are leaders of the Friends of the Barge Canal.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. And then Diane Gayer, who's over there, who what it says online, Diane, is that you're with the Vermont Design Institute and that you're an architect and urbanist. Hopefully that's pretty good. So at any rate, welcome to our speakers. And I guess, Eleanor, you'll be kicking it off. And then we will have that Q&A at the end.
And in the Zoom meeting, if it's easier to.
Yeah, I tried promoting y'all to panelists so you can share stuff.
Like this, yep.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here again to talk about stormwater. I've visited this Ward 6 NPA a couple of times, first to talk about the water service line and also to talk previously about stormwater. Here, I'm just going to try and fly through a lot of slides that are essentially more for maybe some of you who don't know that much about stormwater, who have not been to one of the presentations in the past, to sort of give you some background over what we're dealing with here at the city, as well as a quick update on the bonds that passed. Yay. So this is just, let me, why is it moving? Okay. So this is just, to talk about just the water cycle, and essentially, right, it's all one water. So we get our water here from the lake that we then treat at the water treatment plant by the waterfront. Then, we get it to the homes and the businesses, which then becomes wastewater that goes to the wastewater treatment plant. And then all the water from the rain, so the stormwater, goes into sometimes storm drains, sometimes combined sewer. I'll get to that in a little bit. And then everything goes back to the lake once the wastewater is treated. These are just a couple of timeline slides, just to know a little bit more about the history of water resources in Burlington. So I'm gonna try to fly through them. But basically, the Burling Aqueduct Company was established in 1850, and the city purchased it in 1866. In 1894, the city sort of extended its water intake further offshore as there were significant outbreaks of typhoid and cholera in the city. In 1906, the state condemned the lake as unfit for drinking water. So in 1908, the first water treatment plant was constructed, and we made our first attempts at disinfection and treating the water. And, installed gas chlorination systems. We started thinking about sewage treatment in the mid 1910s, and constructed the first sewage plant in 1927. This is not main plant. It's old, but it's not that old. Main plant was constructed in 1953, and north and east plants, the other two, in 1959 and 1965. This is an old picture here of main plant. And then Congress passed the Clean Water Act and the Safe Drinking Water Act in 1972 and 1974. And those are sort of the main acts that regulate our water and that the city needs to comply with. Covered the reservoirs in 1981. Decided that was pretty important. The current water treatment plant was constructed in 1984, so it is still pretty old. And then in 1987, the Clean Water Act was amended to consider non-point source pollution, which is stormwater. 1994 is when the city made a $52 million investment in the wastewater treatment system. So we installed wet weather treatment, the Vortex, if some of you have taken a tour. We've also installed nutrient removal at all three plants. And then we did a lot of sewer separation work, reducing combined sewer overflow locations from 12 to 5. And again, I'll get to those. But before 1994 upgrades, Burlington was discharging an annual average of 170 million gallons of fully untreated, non-disinfected combined flows to the lake. So you've heard me talk briefly about combined system and a separate system. So we have both here in Burlington. There are two different systems for how a city or municipality deals with stormwater. So if you can see, and I have handouts that have a version of this graph right here. But essentially, in the combined system, stormwater runoff from the roof and the streets, they go to the same pipes, so the sanitary sewers that take in the rest of the waste from the homes. And then MS4, which is a separate system, those pipes are separate, essentially. So the stormwater runoff from roof and street in a separate system have their own pipes, and they go straight to the storm drains into the lake without ever getting treated there. So those are sort of the two systems typically. We have both here in the city, and I do have a slide that shows which areas are combined and which areas are separated. So as I mentioned, this is what we have to be in compliance with. So we have a permit for stormwater that's called our MS4 permit. We have a wastewater permit as well. And both of those permits, they work with the total daily maximum load, which comes from the Clean Water Act, which sort of decides that how much of a specific nutrients can go to Lake Champlain so that it stays healthy or improves in the water quality. And as well as not just Lake Champlain, but also other water bodies in the area, including we have 3 impaired streams. We have Inglesby, Potash Brook, and Centennial Brooks as well. And Megan touched on this briefly, but essentially right now, sort of the main water quality concerns in the city, number 1 is phosphorus. The Lake Champlain already has too much phosphorus in it, which causes those green algae blooms, that picture that you see there on the left, which makes it dangerous for people, pets, fish to just be in the water. And that comes in part, from stormwater runoff, from wastewater. But again, we have really, really good treatment at our wastewater plant, as well as, we sort of get the bad end of the deal here because we have all of the phosphorus pollutions from further inland that sort of all come to the lake. And then other water quality concerns are erosion and sediment, because essentially sediment tends to sort of block like light access, which sort of produces these conditions to get algae blooms. So some of the impaired streams, I think it's potash that is sediment impaired. And then the other one is combined sewer overflows, because in a combined system, since the stormwater goes in the same pipe as the sanitary sewer flows, if you have a really intense rain where it rains very quickly, then the system can get periodically overwhelmed. And so it'll release a little bit, really a little bit of sewage along with stormwater. When it does happen, again, that's like really when the system is overwhelmed with stormwater. So it is like primarily going to be stormwater, but there's a little bit of sewage in there as well. Yeah, some of the external stressors that are making our life more difficult, the aging infrastructure, as hopefully you all heard. But so the city put up a bond vote on town meeting day, which is in March, yes, to be able to borrow for 2 large projects, the lake bond, which are major upgrades to the wastewater plants, especially North Plant, as well as a lot of stormwater upgrades, and then the water bond, which was is going to be large upgrades to the reservoir and pump stations, which enable us to bring drinking water to the high service area. And then just a higher cost of getting of pretty much just like doing everything, but treating the water, retaining people, getting the equipment, building like of capital projects. And then increased development is a stressor because it does add impervious surface. Oh God, I'm going too far. Okay, I only have 3 minutes. I'm gonna skip. So these are sort of the drainage areas here in Burlington. So you can see there are a lot of different colors, but so what I want to show you is this purple area right here that goes to main plant. So that is a combined sewer area, which is really the most relevant for here, as well as this purple, which goes to Inglesby Brook, and so does this yellow here. So it's, a lot of the water goes to either main plant, so that would be a combined system, or to an impaired water body. And here in the south end, this is just a little zoomed in version of everything. So you have this section. It is 2 different colors of purple. I'm sorry, I didn't make this map. But so this lighter purple here is the combined system, and the darker purple is the one that goes to the brook. So some of the things that the city is working on or has already done. So we have built rain gardens over here that are helping treat stormwater runoff. We have the 08 pond, which is right here, technically not in Ward 6, but what this 08 pond does is it's equipped with sensors essentially that sort of track the weather. And so when we anticipate a big rain, these sensors in this pond, the way that it's set up, will sort of like automatically empty itself to be able to capture more rain and reduce sort of these flashiness from stormwater runoff.
And that's at the school supervisory.
Yeah.
Garages.
Yeah. And then these two projects are things that are being considered. So overlay condos over here, we're trying to work with them to do a project that's part of the flow restoration plan. So that's another one of our obligations to try and help these brooks. And then the CSO tank was part of the lake bond. And essentially what this is or would be is a large underground tank at Callahan Park that would sort of capture some of this very peak flow, so that because one of the main CSO points is right here on Pine Street. So by capturing a lot of this water, you reduce the likelihood of overflow. And okay, so this is the bond. I'm going to skip that because we did win it, but I'm happy to talk about it. This is the work, and I can go back if anybody has any questions that was in the bond proposal. But I just want to give just a quick timeline update on those projects. So it is a large amount of money. Around 128 million specifically was for the main plant upgrades. And so we are here, we're around 90% preliminary engineering that's done. I think that should go to city council soon. And from there, we'll ask for approval to go into the next phase, which is the design, like the final design phase. That will take 2 years. It is a very large project, a lot of moving parts. We have to figure out when to take one thing offline without impacting the services. So that's going to take about 2 years, and the main plant construction is anticipated to be between 2027, 2029, and the goal to be like fully online by 2030. So we have a little bit of a buffer there. We are considering to be using what's called construction management at risk, CMAR. And what that means is you hire a construction manager sort of right at the beginning that's involved in this entire like design process, and essentially you sort of lock in their rates early on because they're sort of part of this process, so they're bought into some of the risk. The city hasn't done this before, so that's something that we're working with the city council to see if we can do. And for the drinking water work, we're entering final design for the final design phase for that work, and the construction should start next year. And just opportunities to, get involved or like to hear about it. So we are going to be at each of these steps. We're going to give updates to the city council and probably the TUC commission, so anybody can come in and stop there. And I'm pretty sure that was my last slide. I think. Oh, that was the water rates. I can talk about water rates should there be questions.
Thank you, Eleanor. We're sorry to cut you short. It is such we only have so much time for all these great presentations, but don't forget to save your questions and we can definitely dive back in with each speaker. We have a half an hour for questions. So let's move right on. Michelle, we're looking forward to it. Go ahead.
Screen share, how do we do the screen share? Now that, here's the slideshow. Oh, I see, we have to click on. Yeah. It's right here.
Thank you. I guess I made that myself.
There.
All right. So I am Michelle. I'm with the Blue Stormwater
Hey,
Program.
thanks, everyone.
And this is a partnership program based at Lake Champlain Sea Grant, which is where I work through UVM. And then we are also partner with Fitzgerald Environmental Associates, which is an engineering firm in Colchester, Just Water Consulting, and the city's stormwater department. And the city is who is providing the rebates that we provide through the Blue Stormwater Program. And I will get into that more in a second.
There.
That's our yard, by the way.
Oh.
How's the
At
rain
least-
barrel
The
doing?
rain barrel.
Yeah, it's great.
Yes.
Sorry, we're trying to figure out how to go to the next.
Try
slide.
There's arrows down at
Yeah,
the
you
bottom.
click the arrows. Or just like clicking on it.
Yeah. Oh, those are.
I think I can skip this one because Eleanor talked about, different pollutants, phosphorus coming into Lake Champlain mostly from impervious surfaces like roads, rooftops, driveways. And this is the subwatershed map that Eleanor was talking about and the location of the main plant here. So again, this purple watershed is the combined sewer system, and everything outside of that is separate stormwater system. And so with the Blue Stormwater Program, we provide up to $2,000 per property, and we're targeting residential properties at this point to install stormwater practices. And the practices that we support are a mix of infiltration practices, such as an infiltration trench, rain gardens, dry wells, and permeable pavers. We also support conveyance practices, so moving stormwater to a desirable location where water can drain, such as a trench drain or a vegetated swale or water bars. And the process is that you sign up for a Blue site visit completely free. The city has a sign up page on the website. And then we will come out and conduct a Blue site visit evaluation. So we're mostly looking at, again, those impervious surfaces that are contributing the most amount of runoff. So we're going to look at your roof line, inspect your gutters, see where your downspouts are sending flow, looking to see if your driveway is sloped towards the street, those types of things. And then homeowners will receive a Blue report with suggestions. And then you can choose if you want to move forward with the stormwater practice. And then we always do a post-install assessment. And I'm going to go through those steps in a little bit more detail. So here is what the sign up page looks like at the city website. And I have a QR code if anybody wants to sign up for a site visit after this. And site visits typically run around an hour, and that's where, again, a professional will come to your property and assess the property there with you. And here's an example of a snapshot from a design report. So we include conceptual plans showing your property and where we recommend certain stormwater practices. So for this property, there was a large roof line all draining into one gutter downspout, and it was eroding, kind of digging a hole. This property had really sandy soil, so highly erosive into this person's backyard. And so we recommended capturing that water into a swale and sending it into a rain garden in a desirable location where that water can properly drain and get into the ground. And here's an install that we had go through last summer. Actually, this is on South Union Street. We had somebody install a permeable paved pathway and a rock-lined drainage swale. So this is in construction, and this work was done by Lackey Landworks. We also have educational materials on our website. There's the Rain Garden Manual for Vermont, and I have some print copies of those if anybody's interested. Really great resource. It teaches you how to like size a rain garden based on the amount of roof line you're going to be draining into it, and it has a great plant list too at the back few pages. And then there's also the Vermont Guide to Stormwater Management, which kind of, it has a few decision trees that you can use based on the type of property you have to help you decide what stormwater practices might work on your site. We also have a basis of design manual. This is a more technical document that we prepared again with our partners at Fitzgerald Environmental Associates. And it has design specs and also construction details for all the stormwater practices that we support. And so homeowners can pass this manual directly to a contractor to have them install a stormwater practice. And homeowners can also use this as a guide to DIY install their own practices. We also have a list of contractors, companies that we've worked with through Blue in the past, or other local companies that we know who are installing stormwater projects. And you don't have to use somebody off of this list to go through the Blue program and receive a rebate. It's just a place to get started. And we have contractors that specialize in planting design, contractors that install gutters, and also local spots to buy rain barrels from as well. So again, just looking again at those practices that I mentioned earlier, I know I went through them pretty quick. But rain gardens, basically a depressed garden with a ponding area that allows stormwater to collect and then drain at its own rate. And you can tie a gutter downspout directly into a rain garden. You can have a swale run into a rain garden. Another practice is a dry well. That's another one you can attach directly up to a gutter downspout. And these are really great if you have, saturation up against your foundation, or if otherwise water would be running onto an impervious surface and into the street. It's really great to catch it and to get it into the ground instead. And then permeable paved driveways and pathways, we support that as well. And there are a few examples of some really pretty permeable driveways around the city. Oh, I lost my arrow to go. Oh, now it's working. Okay. And just another close-up photo, a driveway trench drain. That's typically at the base of a driveway. So the downslope to catch any runoff running down the driveway, and then you can direct that flow to the side into a vegetated area. Similar idea with the swale, but that would be installed on the lawn. And then the most important thing with gutters, and this is really where you can get a big impact for, an easy fix, a low cost fix, is just making sure that your downspouts are not draining onto your driveway and making sure that gutters are directed towards stable vegetated area. That's going to allow stormwater coming off your roof line to really, spread out, slow down, and hopefully sink into the lawn. And here is the rebate chart. So again, it's up to that $2,000 maximum per property. And all of these practices get different values, and we give the highest value to practices that are, again, actually encouraging water to infiltrate into the ground. And then those conveyance practices such as gutters and swales get a little bit less, but we still value those practices as well. And a new practice that we added in recently actually is impervious surface removal. So that's if you have like an old concrete pad, or if you want to reduce the size of your driveway, or last year we actually had somebody remove their entryway concrete walkway and replaced it with stepping stones with vegetation around those. And here's kind of a quick review of what we accomplished in 2024. We had 80 site visits last season. 11 homeowners moved forward with projects. We gave out just over 12,000 in rebates, and we treated over 7,000 square foot of impervious area. So the top corner, I think you'll be able to see the cursor. Wait.
Yeah.
Oh, you can, but it's kind of hard to see. But this was a driveway reduction project here in the top corner, and it opened up these lovely spaces for perennial garden beds. Here's what the driveway looked like afterwards. Before, it was kind of a larger concrete slab. Here's the rock lined drainage swale that was installed on South Union Street. And there's a impervious parking lot that kind of slopes into the swale, so capturing all that water here and allowing it to infiltrate. Here's a beautiful permeable paved driveway. This was installed on Strong Street by Maple Leaf Landscaping. And here in the bottom corner, this is an infiltration trench. And this is a great solution for where your rooftop doesn't accommodate gutters, but maybe you have, you know, saturation up against your foundation, and it's better to get that to drain into the ground. And the dry well here, the next photo, and this is the concrete path I was talking about that the homeowner transition into stepping stones. And then rain barrels, we typically see a few of those go in every year as well. And I think that is my last slide, I believe. Yes. Thank you. Happy to answer questions at the end about Blue.
Hey, thank you, Michelle. So we're going to move on to Know Your Barge Canal with Andy Simon and Ruby Perry. You need to have your microphone over with you.
So I'm Ruby Perry, and I'm with the Friends of the Barge Canal. And we'll be talking a little bit more about the Barge Canal, though we did a much more in-depth presentation a few months ago for Ward 6. But Friends of the Barge Canal is a nonprofit volunteers, and our main objective is to protect that land and also to raise awareness of that land here in the South End and raise consciousness about it in terms of the work that it's doing for the city, in particular around what we have been talking about so far. I think that's all I want to do for at this point.
Say your name again.
Ruby Perry.
Okay, great. I'm Andy Simon. I am also part of Friends of the Barge Canal. We formed this organization about over 3 years ago now in response to the sale of the front part of the Barge Canal that's private land. And we have about 600 people on over 600 people on our mailing list now. And you're welcome to join. We'll talk more about that. I guess what I want to do is check in. I know a lot of people here, and I know a lot of people know a lot already about the Barge Canal. So I don't want to give any information that you don't need. But are there some people here that feel that they don't really know much at all about what the Barge Canal, Pine Street Barge Canal is? Okay, good. Well, in fact, technically speaking, we are on the Pine Street Barge Canal Superfund site as we speak. You don't have to leave anywhere to go to the Pine Street Barge Canal Superfund site because this is part of it. This building, Burlington Electric Company, and everything north all the way to the Maltex building and all the way west to the water that's out there. And maybe you could put up that map, Shawnee, so that we could look at it, is the Pine Street Barge Canal. And it is a federal EPA Superfund site. It is also the site of a former manufactured gas plant. Before that, it used to be lumber storage. It's a little hard to see here, but that area in the sort of, if you can see the green line around it, is the conserved area under recreational conservation zoning. And the yellow line, which includes our building that we're in right now, the DPW building, is the Superfund site. So all told, including these buildings, it's about 38 acres. The natural area, that is to say the open area right now, is about 28 acres. And it is essentially a natural area right now because it was preserved from it has been preserved from development by a combination of citizen activism in the 1990s in Burlington, not citizen activism, but resident activism that prevented the EPA from scraping the whole thing off and creating this giant waste container on part of the property and then opening it up for roads, development, anything else. combination of that and the fact that it's private and public land, and the private land that has been for sale at various times over the last 30 or 35 years has never been sold, has never been successfully developed because of the liability issues of the pollution on this land, because of the various administrative and regulatory hoops that anybody who develops here has to go through. The most recent you probably know about was the Silt Spa, a spa that was proposed for the Barge Canal by Jovial King. And she went pretty far down that road and got $6 million of state money to do the work that she needed to do, but it wasn't enough. And last year pulled the plug on it. And now, as far as we know, that land hasn't been put up for sale again yet.
Question for you.
Yeah,
Who owns private land?
Rick Davis, who owns the Maltex building and lives in Stowe and is a well-known developer here. He owns the front 8 acres of the 28 acres of the Barge Canal. We would love to take you on a walk at the Barge Canal sometime. You will see when you go there, not so much now, but this is actually a pretty good time to go because the things haven't grown up yet. But it's a large open area, it's wooded, it's wetlands. And because the EPA was prevented from sort of raising the whole thing and remediating it the way they wanted to in the 90s, it's grown up to trees, it's grown up to bushes, it's a wildlife habitat. Ruby's going to talk more about this. It's a lush, vibrant area that's been recovering since 1967 when the manufactured gas plant was dismantled, recovering an ecosystem. Maybe you could put up that next slide too, Shawnee, that'd be great.
Did you want to?
Something I'm having trouble following. Can you give me a link?
It doesn't. Yeah, just pull it right out. of
Yeah, but it goes in the.
Just grab the silver. It goes over.
Sorry, but can you explain a little bit of why you're saying that remediation, in your view, would have been a negative? Because it sounds like that's what you're saying, that the EPA remediation plan would have been a negative, and it would help to understand that.
Well, when we'll also answer questions at the end too, but the site is technically remediated. Right now, from an EPA point of view, it is remediated. Because when their original remediation plan was proposed in the 90s, which was a $50 million plan in 1990s money and was going to create a 13-acre, 25-foot high containment vessel for all the polluted soil and water, it was rejected roundly by local residents and local scientists and local politicians. That version of remediation was rejected. The remediation that the coordinating council that was appointed came up with after 5 years of study was basically leave it alone. And that is considered remediation.
Thank you.
So let's jump right to what the services, the ecosystem services that the Barge Canal is providing. And even though we say the Barge Canal, which is a body of water that comes in from the lake, it also includes 24 acres of wetland. And that wetland is essential to Burlington's stormwater, especially in the south end, what happens with Burlington stormwater before it goes into the lake. And the reason that that is working so well is because it was left alone. And that was the remediation that was proposed as an alternative to actually scraping off all the dirt and piling it up. And in that time, since that time, this ecosystem that Andy just described has grown up and has essentially contained the contaminants. They are not flowing into the lake and they are not flowing into the groundwater. And that's verified every 5 years by EPA in-depth studies of wells that are in the ground and are documented every 5 years. So all of that material is available. And part of our work, and I think there's a slide coming up, part of the work of the Friends has been to raise awareness and consciousness about just how essential it is to have this green space. That first of all, it's not a wasteland, which is how people often think about it. It's actually, as Andy mentioned, an alive ecosystem. And even though there are a lot of invasives there, they're still doing the work of containing the 56 contaminants of concern in that land. And part of our work has been to raise public awareness about that. And if you want to do the next slide, which is kind of fun, we did do a Let It Be project. You might have seen it. We made Let It Be signs, and they are triptychs to talk about sequestering carbon, transforming toxins, wildlife habitat, wetland, flood control, stormwater, sewer overflow. And after every one, we said, let it be. But we stuck them into the ground, and the city took them down after 24 hours. So we got people came, and for 3 days, I think it was the coldest 3 days of that winter 3 years ago. We just held them up. And you can't hear it, but in the background was all these different versions of Let It Be playing. So,
Okay, so if you could do the next slide, Shawnee, that would be great. So as Eleanor was saying, and there are combined sewer overflow areas in Burlington. You can't see so well, but the lowest red dot, the most southernmost red dot, is the one that's right here, actually. So when there is a combined sewer overflow event, which, as Megan said, is happening more frequently because there's more rain, the water flows down into this CSO, into a waterway that's right in back of the DPW building. This is very convenient to be right here, and flows into the Barge Canal. And as Megan Moyer, the Director of Water Resources, told us, the Barge Canal is a very much of an essential part of, among other ecosystem services, very much an essential part of treating the water, the untreated water that's part of the CSO system, before it goes out to the lake, before it infiltrates into the ground, out to the lake, or goes out through Barge Canal. So it hasn't been well studied, but it's an essential part of the system. The next slide would be great. That was just to show you, but let's move on to the next one. So Friends of the Barge Canal is working to have the community and the city government recognize the value of the Barge Canal. It's still somewhat cast to the side when we talk about open space protection plan and things like that, because it's not, your standard forest.
and it's not really clear who owns that property, even though the city owns 11 acres. Much of it is still owned by private landowners. And so we need to get the city, and we'll talk about this hopefully later. And on our website is a petition where you can sign, where we need to look at that land as a part of the whole development of the South End, especially in light of the 1,500 units that are about to be built over the next 5 years there across the way.
Could you go to the next slide, Shawnee, and then we'll finish up. So Green Up Day, this will be the fourth year in a row that we've done a Green Up event at the Barge Canal. That's May 3rd. We'll send out more information about that. One more slide would be great. This is the first Green Up Day at the Barge Canal. There is nowhere near that much trash.
Our time's up.
Our time's up now. But so join us on May 3rd.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much for that updated version, for me anyway, of the presentation on the Barge Canal and how it fits into the stormwater overflow. That's fantastic. Okay, so our last presentation is coming up here on green infrastructure designs from Diane.
Learning how to do this.
The microphone closer to you.
So I guess just to back up and reorient, Ward 6 and Ward 5, the golf course is on the right side, and all the little raindrops gather in the golf course at UVM, the top of the hill, and then flow across our landscape headed for the lake. We as little human beings both want the lake and the golf course. So we're going back and forth in this watershed, but the water is really wanting to go one way. And in the middle of the slide, you'll see Callahan Park. It used to be called South Park until like, what was it? 1998, I think it was renamed. And the Barge Canal is that black line at the top of the slide coming down. I can do this right there. Okay. And then Anglesby, this is a really nice view of Anglesby, which sort of cuts us off really in some ways from South Burlington, but it isn't very visible because it's in a ravine, and yet it's a huge waterway for us within the context of Burlington and our South End water system. And as Eleanor and Michelle said, there are 3 brooks: Centennial from UVM going into Winooski, Potash Brook going to Queen City Park, and Anglesby. Oh, the little arrows down here. Okay. You already saw this. The red is the Anglesby Brook area that's impaired. The orange actually is Potash Brook. The orange zones also starting over here by Spear Street and flowing over here and coming down through here is Potash. So they're really parallel in some ways. All of this is by sort of bringing you to sort of orientation of where we are in the landscape. And South Park, or Callahan. The light turquoise zones are these water collection areas. This is where the ice skating rink is in winter. The light green, lime green are sort of the swales that are already there, harvesting and slowing down the water as it flows across this whole acreage. You can also see some other, water problem areas. I got this from the Callahan master plan that the city did. It's a beautiful document, both this last slide and this slide. So if you actually look for those documents, there's a lot of information there. And there's slowly, the city's slowly working on some of the repairs to this. And then back to this tank. Here's the location proposed for the tank that would harvest and hold the water as it comes across the land before it discharged across Pine Street or under Pine Street into what I would say is the Barge Canal, and that whole services that the Barge Canal is currently doing for us. But I'd like to offer other ways of viewing stormwater parks. This is from Patricia Johansson. She's done a lot of work across the US and Germany. And if you look at the slide, the image on the left side, this is sort of the gravel zone that would fill in and when it's at a low water moment, and then when it's full of water, it would sort of be more reflective like this. And then these tongues are paths through there that the children can run around on, or even adults, and a bridge. And so there are other ways of including stormwater in our parks, is what I'm offering with this slide. So I'm going through different ways of looking at some of these things. This is what an underground tank system might look like. So there's a lot of gravel, there are these tubes, and then it's all covered with earth. And then, yes, it's all safe and sound and it stores the water, but it doesn't create animal corridors. It doesn't create bird habitat, doesn't create people space, and it doesn't help the water oxygenate. So there are reasons for this, especially spatial reasons. But there's also reasons for doing an above ground, let the water breathe version. And we also looked, and Faye may recognize this, we've done some studies in the past. I'm not part of UVM teaching anymore, but where we use these mats that are like in docks to treat the water in the water when it's landed already in the lake. And so they're sort of like constructed wetlands in a dock system. And then it would be, this drawing is at Echo. It could be at the base of Englesby next to Oak Ledge. And the nutrients and the phosphorus and all of those pollutants that are rushing down with our stormwater discharges could be taken up in one more way. So what are the goals as far as, I've sort of processed green infrastructure to maintain our air and water quality. So air and water do commingle. Allow water to infiltrate into our soil so that we sort of have a spongier condition across the city as the water's flowing through us. Pay attention to the flow pattern of water and people's desire lines. And that intersection is a really vibrant intersection. So that can be an amenity in terms of how we perceive things. Working with natural systems and processes and using those directions in terms of how we make decisions, decide things. And recognizing the biophilic relationship between humans, pedestrian ways, sidewalks, bike paths, vegetative areas. And by biophilic, I'm talking about that instinct that we have, that love of nature that we have that sort of keeps us healthy. So that's how I see this coming into our city. So for example, South End right here, another thing that we can view, the parking lot over here in front of us. This is a drawing from the city that is probably 5 years old by now. It was in the report for the South End Innovative District. And it shows a build out. You can see, let's see, Pine Street is right here. This line here is Pine Street. This right here is South Park. Over here is the GE plant, the Innovation Center. Over here is Hula, not looking like what it actually is, but it was a projected drawing. And then this right here is the railroad track. So what you see in this build out example is housing with maybe solar collectors on the roof, more housing, maybe mixed use right here. In the center, this is the Champlain Parkway coming through. And then this building is probably a recreation of a Champlain College building. And then this I'm taking as a transportation hub. The bottom of the slide going across here is Englesby. And at the very top in the middle would be, right in here, would be where the Barge Canal is. So this whole landscape in the drawing is flattened, but the Barge Canal and Englesby actually want to connect. And at one point probably was all marsh and connected space. So that to me speaks to the missing piece in this drawing that's sort of being imagined for the South End is using a riverine system as a core to the drawing. Like all of this development could be anchored around bringing water as a feature. And so to that, a couple quickie things, like oxygenation in a rivers is formed through tumbling water across rocks. So the oxygen comes in, daylight comes in. This middle example, you have a brook or a creek through the middle, and then it has little wetland areas as buffers. And then this one on the right is in Japan, and it's a very urbanized one. And it's also a collection system for stormwater mixed in with play space and fountains. Or in Korea, you can see right here, this little sidewalk has this like curving, that's a water collection system right here. And then there's all this landscape between the sidewalk and the street has permeable pavers. And then this little bridge is a permeable stone. And then here's the stream going underneath it. So this is vegetating instead of having grass along our sides of our sidewalks. Or at a highway drip zone. Right here, there's a drip coming off of I-89. This is Spear Street on the left. And if instead of just having rocks and concrete here, we actually landscaped it with some boulders and materials, it would slow down all those pollutants before it even went into potash. A rooftop that can be multifunctional, can have ponding. Our schools could look like this on their roofs, could be covered with sedums, and all of that would slow down the water before it reaches. So now I have two examples of other housing. This is a senior complex in Japan, Setagaya, and where this grass is all ponding. So all the roof water comes into that grassy zone, and then it's piped and saved for the gardens down below. All the landscaping, there are community gardens, there's rice paddies, and there's also little gardens on the balconies for those that can't go up and down. Just a ground view version. And then Bedzed, which is in Bedlington, which is a suburb of London. This has, back to roof, this is all sedum covered roofs. This is all passive solar, greenhouses, and then natural convection through the thing for cooling. And then you can also see the little roadways down here. So the roads pass through and you can connect, but you can also connect from one building to the next with these passageways, people passageways. This is what it looks like, not in the model, but in sort of real time. And then part of it is these ventilation stacks are really, really colorful. So it adds to the color of an otherwise gray landscape. And then, so this is College Street. Yes, College Street is going to be part of the Great Streets program, but maybe someday, we can imagine it beyond for, what the next level might be. And that would be a slide coming down to the waterfront.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, we made it right on time. Thank you all, the panelists. That was really nicely connected between you too. I thought it was excellent. So now's our Q&A. We worked really hard to give you plenty of time for questions, so now you're obligated to ask them. Yeah. So get thinking, because we need your questions, because we left plenty of time for it. Great.
Yeah, hi, Greg Eplerwood, Ward 6. I was wondering about Pomerleau's project right there at Price Chopper. Does that fit into the city's plan somehow? Market 32. Market 32. Sorry. Excuse me. I don't usually.
Yeah, so that project is a public-private partnership between the city, Pomerleau, and Champlain Housing Trust, where we received ARPA federal funding, which is the American Rescue Plan Act, to build a gravel wetland to treat both that entire parking lot and parts of the Champlain Housing Trust. They just finished it, but that goes to Potash Brook. So that's also part of a flow restoration project. Yeah, and it's it's great. We're just finishing up on that one.
Can I ask what the volume of that would be, or the impact, in relatively?
I have that somewhere. I just do not have it on top of my head. But it is the biggest clean water project in the state, which is pretty cool.
There's a retention pond there, is that right?
It's a gravel wetland.
And will that be, can people walk by it? How would one see it?
They have like a big educational sign in it. I think it's sort of at the end of the parking lot to see it. I don't know that you can actually walk through in it for probably liability purposes.
So I'll just say you can see that gravel wetland from like the parking lot behind Buffalo Wild Wings. You can look down over it from there. I haven't looked at it from the Champlain Housing Trust project, so I don't know what it looks like when you're sort of at ground level or what the access is, but you can see what's going on from behind Buffalo Wild Wings. But I had a question about, so like, this is really just an example, but it's also a specific question. But like the rain gardens that were installed on South Prospect Street and Fairmount and South Street and those, how do you measure what they're doing? Like, how do we know that they're doing anything or what it is that they're doing? And I say that as somebody who has one in my front yard, and I think it looks really great. So I don't have a problem with it, but I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, so I'll answer that question with the caveat that I am not an engineer and I am not the one who made the calculations. So this is more of a educated guess than anything. But so we we have models in the city for, like hydraulic models. And so we pair that. We also look at the data in terms of the frequency of the storms. And then you look at, for a rain garden specifically, well, how deep it is, so how much water it's going to store. So those are some things that we can calculate based off of how the rain garden was built and, knowing the soil conditions around the rain garden. So once you have sort of the rain volume, then you can sort of see the impact it would have, like when you put it in the model and look at, how much water it's capturing and what sort of storms are coming in.
Can I just follow up on that? And you can take part of that, you can take the answer. With those models, which you probably both have seen, can you set out any challenges to us as to how much more of this kind of absorption through community action, like what percentage of the problem can we cover and how many rain gardens would that take? Or have you ever looked at that?
I am not the modeling person, so I have not. I don't know that. I know that, we have certain, like, in terms of compliance for various plans with our MS4 permit, there's the long-term control plan, which is our plan with the state to see how it has us treat a specific amount of impervious surface to sort of meet those obligations. So we have models to sort of treat, that amount like various amounts in the city, but I don't know that we've looked at
Rain gardens we need?
Yeah, we haven't looked at how many rain gardens we need, but we more like we have the amount of impervious surface that we need to treat. And then when we have each project, then we'll look at what area is that treating under what, conditions, et cetera.
I want to add to it. Yeah.
So,
I wanted to address, Dale, what you were asking too about the rain gardens. So I can't speak to the ones on Prospect as much, but we did have an intern who was trying to get some cool live action videos of the rain gardens on St. Paul Street. And so all of those rain gardens are designed with an overflow because we're never going to be able to capture as much rain as falling and hitting the road during a heavy rainstorm. But what he captured in his video is that the overflow water was much, much cleaner than the water that was entering the system. So even if we're not capturing all of that water, we're still slowing it down and we're filtering it. So that's a great benefit too. And something that I think, about taking into account private property, like we can scale down these beautiful design ideas that Diane was saying, and we can have them on our properties too. And I think every drop counts. So.
I wanted to bring up the neighborhood code. So we know that with the neighborhood code in Burlington, we can all densify our backyards by putting another house in there, all the tiny houses that are now able to go into and create more density within the city. But they didn't address any of the pervious surface that's being taken up, all of the land that then now becomes impervious with a building on it or another parking, isn't part of the code. And when I last talked to Charles Dillard, he said, no, we're still fixing the first part and the second part, and that might be sometime next year.
Can you just say who Charles Dillard is?
Oh, Charles, he's the director of planning for the city. So this concern of densifying is great, but we have to team it up with what are we doing? Because we're adding twice as many roofs, let's say. So
One thing though, so that is something that the zoning ordinance is like the south end that we're looking at. But we have chapter 26 in the city. That's the chapter of our code of ordinance that regulates stormwater. And as part of that chapter, there are requirements for any development, including redevelopment, which is actually how we get a lot of the treatment in the city. So for example, an existing parking lot over there that was not really treated before, if they do anything at all, they're going to get on our radar again. So, and when they get to our radar, we look at net new impervious surface and we look at redeveloped impervious surface as well as total impervious surface whenever we get a stormwater permit request. So when we look at that, then they would fall in a category that requires them to treat a certain amount of their surface, even if they weren't doing it before.
yeah, I think I brought up neighborhood code because that's specifically small residential that wouldn't be triggered. That's it.
We're sort of working with Charles and them to see how we can sort of, consider these more like common plan of development type things where the little ones add up.
I had a couple things. One is that in the part of Burlington I live in on the hill, the hill seems to be somewhat saturated, so that like at the Edmonds playground, there's water coming out of the hill. There's on South Union is flooded all the time. It's not leaking pipes. It's the hill is the water comes out. I assume it comes out a little cleaner than it came in, but it's still it's going to get way worse, right? So is putting water into the ground the right thing to do? And the second question I had is, I love these structures. We built one with Champlain College, but they don't maintain it. And is there a plan to, you show how to build them, but how do you maintain these structures and keep them functional?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we do include maintenance instructions in our basis of design manual. And we do. But yes, that's a good point. There is a lot of maintenance, and we always try to talk about that up front. And I do think, stormwater practices can be installed without thinking of that initially, and maintenance should always be considered upfront. So great point. And then I wanted, yeah, do you want to? I'll just reference what you were saying earlier about South Union has very, very high groundwater. And so there's a difference between, groundwater is the water that's sitting on top of the bedrock below the surface of the soil, like an underground river that we can't really see or predict how it's moving. Most of Burlington does have incredibly sandy soils. So we can really encourage infiltration in a lot of areas around the city. And with Blue, we never recommend infiltration practice to be installed unless we've gone out and done a soil test first to make sure that that site actually has that infiltration capacity. But we did a soil test on a house along South Union, and they had groundwater signs just 6 inches below the surface of the soil. So we are aware that there are pockets out there. And in that case, the best thing that you can do is just to build up your vegetation, especially woody trees and shrubs, root systems, plant mass,
Well, even just that sidewalk that had plantings on both sides of it,
Mhm.
Rather than grass where it runs fast.
Yeah. Because plant mass, catches rainwater before it even hits the surface. And it also, like, those roots create pathways for water to infiltrate as well. And the plants are uptaking. So if your issue is groundwater, I would say plant and densely. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I
Jan.
wanted to bring up Adopt a Drain as part of, because there's a program called Adopt a Drain that we haven't talked about.
It's on your flyers under resources for those of you in the room.
And by extension, I was thinking we could have, adopt a rain garden. And I'm not thinking of the private ones, but you could adopt one of the rain gardens that's there by South Park to help maintain it. Because I think at the end of the day, the city can't do everything. Just as we need to be little sponges, we need to be little, beings on the ground helping the city function. It's yes, we're paying our taxes, and yes, we have these huge bonds, but we can't just rely on that. There's really, sort of a participation level to some of this.
That's a great.
Hey, Jan.
I have a simple question, and that is, I talked to Andy about the Barge Canal project a couple of years ago, and Moreau was sort of ignoring the thing and not considering it part of any of the planning that was going on. Has that changed now at all, or is that still a bastard project?
Well, we have a new mayor, and
That's why I asked.
we've had extensive conversations with her, and she definitely is much more aware and willing to listen to it. The same issues that it is privately owned and publicly owned, and the EPA has overseer rule over it, so that it doesn't end up being a place where you can make money as jovial.
Such a problem.
Right, off from it.
The other thing, Jan, is that, and everybody, is that what we're calling for, we Friends of the Barge Canal are calling for right now, and we have a petition on the website, which is at pinestreetbargecanal.org. And I'd love you to go visit it. There's a petition that's calling for a simple thing, which is to have an all-parties conference convened by CEDO, by the Community Economic Development Office, to consider the future of the Barge Canal, because of that very question of, like, so everybody is sort of hands off about the Pine Street Barge Canal, and have been for years, because there are liability issues, because it's an odd space that doesn't fit into the usual categories, because it's supervised by the EPA and Vermont Department of Environmental Conservation, and it's easier to just kind of ignore it. And in some ways, that's great for the Barge Canal, because they're not building on it, but they're still trying to, and there has to be a broader vision. There has to be a sort of citywide consultation about what's going to happen to that space 50 years from now. Where is it going to be 50 years from now? And what the advantages for all these things we've been talking about stormwater infiltration, about the CSO treatment, about, plants growing up and sequestering carbon. What are the things that we can do to foster that and all of those services? And it's really time for us to start thinking about it as a city, how we're going to incorporate that into our whole vision of what the open space is. And so go to the website, pinestreetbargecanal.org, sign the petition. We're going to send it along to Mayor Mulvaney Stanek, to Brian Pine at CEDO, and to Ben Travers, the president of the city council.
I had a follow-up question for you guys too. On this whole issue of the CSO that's flowing through the Barge Canal now. I went to the Megan Moira's presentation on that and asked her about what was the research on that. And she said that the research looked good by way of it filtering out to the lake without any toxics getting into the lake. But you said that more research needs to be done. So I wanted your view on that.
Megan indicated that yes, it performs a very valuable function. The exact sort of quantification of that is sort of like the question about how much do the rain gardens really capture and what do they do? It's kind of there's a tremendous amount of study that could be done at a place like the Barge Canal to see what the actual quantified benefit is. But it has to be, somebody has to write a grant and somebody has to, do the research. And as Megan pointed out, somebody has to be there right when the stormwater event, the CSO event happens to be able to sort of like see what's actually happening down there. So I think it's yes and there
More to
are
know.
definite benefits, but exactly studying those would be a great research project.
Just to clarify, it's pollutants from the Superfund site are not leaching into the lake. That's controlled.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. That's capped. When there was something, I don't know, 10 years back, they recapped it, lined the Barge Canal with sand. So there's no filtration from the ground into the canal part that is contiguous with the lake.
That's good to know. Thanks.
Yeah.
After everybody signed up for the Barge Canal, I now would like to make a plea for Anglesby. There is a section of Anglesby that I think is called Wild and belongs to the city. And there is also a section that's privately owned. There's a section that gets totally hidden from view so that nobody is conscious that there's even a brook. And there's sections of it that have been totally ignored and defamed, or whatever the word is. But I think it deserves far more attention. It's critical. And you look at the map and it's the only moving body of water in wards 5 and 6, or in the city.
We were going to have some sign-up sheets for the rain garden tour, if people were interested in a rain garden tour. I would offer that if people are interested in a tour of Anglesby, it's very interesting, but you have to be ready, to walk in the mud in the wild. And back to Potash Brook, why I was really I walked all of Potash Brook one time too, and went under the tunnel so these are interesting pathways that all of our animals, the bear, the bobcat, the moose, everybody's coming through there. It's very
Be real.
It's the place to be.
The Champlain School has a video of Anglesby behind them, and they have a video, and I'm not a school child, so I haven't seen it. I've only been told about it. But when you go in the school, you can see the animals that have come through at night.
So there. Yeah, Greg.
Yeah, I have a statement and then a question about the Barge Canal. The adopted drain, I did adopt a drain. I called it Mr. Clean. However, when going through that process, when you go through that process, and I'm just talking about South Union and the blocks, there are probably 5, maybe 6, maybe even 7 storm drains on South Union that are not eligible to be adopted because they're in the street where traffic goes by. So it's kind of ineffective. There was only one that I could adopt, and it was just around the corner on Cliff Street, but all the rest are off the map. So, and then the question about how did the city, if we're part of the Barge Canal area here, how did the city build BED in this building in the EPA zone?
They were built before there was.
Yeah, I think that's true. The St. Johnsbury Trucking, which is what was here before Department of Public Works, was here before the Barge Canal was even declared. And there were concerns, there have been concerns since the construction of Burlington Electric Department, which was also prior to the Superfund site, but there were concerns about the internal air quality in BED for the people that were working there and being there every day. So they did a massive test of the internal air quality and found, as they often do, that there was a not unacceptable risk for the people in that building. That's how they put it. It's not an unacceptable risk. So it doesn't mean that it's really good air quality. It just means it's below, a certain threshold.
Well, and when when DEW, this is
DPW.
DPW, Jesus, built their parking lot, which was more recent, and they discovered that they couldn't actually do it in the normal way. They just brought in fill and covered it over, which was an acceptable way of dealing with the pollution underneath. I had one comment I wanted to make too. And I feel like an event like this is pretty essential, and it's happening right now. And that is this consciousness shift where we think about water not as this problem. Diane touched on it a little bit in the Blue program, I think, starts to scratch the surface of we change our consciousness and we stop looking at water and the increased flow of water as this problem that has to be dealt with, which is how the developers, their limited range of imagination, deal with it. And instead think about it as water is life, that water is a part of our life, and how are we going to incorporate it into it? And it isn't just to bury it and to sequester it somewhere. It is to make it a part of our lives and in our individual homes and in every development that we build, and to find ways that we use our imagination better to create things that work with the water flow, work with the earth instead of fighting it.
Thank you very much. That's an excellent summary of our goals, because from the beginning of our committee, our concern was that we were just constantly trying to dig holes and bury the excess water going through pipes. And this didn't seem to be a goal that maybe a lot of Burlingtonians would share if they knew what was happening, which mostly they don't. So that's the beauty of having public meetings and the opportunity to even get to understand this, I think, for all of us as a community in this ecosystem that we all share. So it's really great to have everyone here. I have a few resources I can read out and plans for our committee. Are there any more questions?
Can anybody tell me why Potash Brook, how it got its name? Potash Brook.
Right.
Do you know the answer to that question,
I
Charlie?
don't know the answer. I've asked that question 100 times.
Oh. All right, we'll have to leave that one for the next meeting. Oh, yeah, Eleanor, go ahead.
Just, I did find how much the Pomerleau project treats. So it treats around 820,000 gallons during every 2-inch rainfall is how much it is expecting to treat. Yeah, it is the largest clean water project in the state. And then, yeah, the adopted drain, there are a fair amount of drains that you cannot adopt. It is a national program, so we sort of follow the rules of that program, but you can't adopt some drains, because it's too risky in a high traffic area. However, there are plenty of drains that are adoptable in the city.
What does it mean to adopt a drain?
So it means that you sort of become responsible to make sure that you're not like but you volunteer to go and make sure that it's clear sort of before a big rain. Yeah, you get to name your drains. We've seen some really cool names. And then a lot of the times before big storms, we'll send out sort of a mass call to our drain defenders, be like, hey, check on your drain.
T-shirts are coming.
Yeah, right. We're gonna have these.
Can I shortstop it?
I just want to say that I want to thank Megan and Nancy and Diane for this event. And I want to say that as a former member of the Ward 5 NPA steering committee, that this was a really good example of the benefits of the NPA, how vibrant the NPA can be. And when people from the city, people from other organizations, individuals attend and share their expertise and their questions. And I just thought it was great. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
No, I'll leave it there. I was just going to come back to potash.
All right. Well, I'll let you do that, but let me just close and then, so thank you all for coming and thank you for the recognition of what we're trying to do, which is, and Nancy has been a very big part of this too, to get us all to think about how we can be a little less reactive and a little bit more responsive. And this was our way of doing that. And I think, it's a good way to think together about how we can resolve problems instead of just hearing presentations. So I hope we can do it again. And we have a few activities that we hope to offer. One is this neighborhood rain garden tour that we haven't really built out yet as an activity. We didn't bring a sign-up sheet, but sorry about that, but we'll publicize it. It'll be possible. And so we're hoping to do that in June. And then the Green Up Day for the Barge Canal was already mentioned.
May 3rd.
For May 3rd. And then Greg, my husband, mentioned the Adopt a Drain program. And so it's pretty easy to find, vermontadoptadrain.org. So if you don't have one of the flyers, you can just look it up. And then there's, Diane, you can speak to this, the open space plan. That's a resource.
There's a survey.
Oh, a survey.
If you look up Open Space Plan Burlington, and there's a lot of content there.
I did that. That's right. Yeah.
And
So it's,
question 8 is,
yeah.
what's your favorite open space? And
Yeah.
they have left off the Barge Canal.
Yeah.
And so go to question 8 if you answer none of the others and say, what about the Barge Canal? That's my favorite open space.
Okay. And then the bike map, there is a bike map available for Burlington Rain Gardens. Where is that, guys? Oh, okay, great. So we have some examples here. And how about there's a proposed tree walk, Champlain College and neighborhood. So, and that's you?
Yeah, I'm part of Branch Out Burlington.
Okay. Excellent.
And part of the concern is they have a lot of ash that will be at Champlain College. Yeah.
Yeah, we will be including, by the way, the Champlain College in the rain garden tour too. So that'll be part of it. All right. So those are the resources that we've gathered today. Thank you all. Right on time. And so it was a great opportunity to do this with all of you. Thank you.
So thanks again. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight and all our fabulous presenters and the People's Kitchen and Shawnee from CEDO and Charlie. And we really want your feedback. So if you have other ideas you'd like to bring to the NPA, let us know. Thank you, everybody.
To-go containers, if you want to bring something.
To-go containers, yes, to-go containers. Thank you. We're adjourned.